This is okay. No, it's not. Jesus taught It's too spicy. This is painful. Man, my insides on fire. Shucks, dude, this is like death. Beauty.
And welcome to our Zero Gravity podcast. Today is our third episode and we are very, very honored to welcome the pastor of Community of Hope, Pastor William Soans, for our third podcast. Woo! Yay. Welcome, Sonnah. So nice to have you on our podcast.
I'm honored to be here today.
This is making me awkward at this point.
It's fun. I'm happy to be here.
Nice. We're really excited to have you here today and just share from your heart everything that you've been talking about when it comes to like accountability and discipleship. Yeah. But we're going to be doing something different for this podcast. Instead of having just a discussion on different topics, we are going to be doing a fun little experimenty type of thing. So
self-torture.
Yeah, okay. Kind of self-torture. I'm assuming all of you guys know about the Hot Ones video, but since we are very Indian and Sonnah is also more Indian than he is Anglo-Indian, we are going to be doing this with Bhajiyas. I wanted to call them Pakodas, but Sonnah disagrees.
But that was too South Bombay. So we were like, let's call it Bhajiyas.
So Bhajiyas / Pakodas. Now we have 7 Pakodas right in front of us. That is 7 for me and 7 for Sonnah. And it starts off really mild, but then it goes on and the spice intensity continues to increase till the last Pakoda. While we're eating this, we're going to be answering and discussing some controversial statements made on accountability and discipleship. So as each question is asked, we're going to be taking one pakoda and eating it. And while we're discussing it, we're going to just build on the intensity. So if you all haven't already understood yet, just watch till the end of the video and you'll get what's happening. So hopefully we survive.
Hopefully.
Yeah, Sonnah does really bad with spice, which is why I actually wanted to do this with him. Because it'll be fun to have a serious discussion with something that's not allowing us to
all
be
the way
serious.
to Kala Pakoda, right at the back.
Yeah.
Torture.
Okay. So before we start, Sonnah, maybe we'll introduce your topic.
Sure.
So just for a light start, we're going to do our first pakoda. That is at level 1.
Come on. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's reach to...
So your topic was accountability and discipleship, but freedom with regard to accountability and discipleship. So how do you think those two things, freedom and accountability and discipleship, go together?
My chewing was really loud. I couldn't hear you.
You couldn't hear me over your chewing.
It's real crisps, bro. So...
Not really. It's not soggy.
So is the question again?
My question was, how does freedom relate to or better accountability and discipleship?
I think if you look at it, if you look at freedom as the goal, accountability and discipleship go hand in hand to take you there. So I think they're really large topics, and if they're addressed well and followed through well, you reach the goal of freedom in every facet of life. Thank you.
I was still finishing up my pakoda. Didn't you finish your whole thing?
Yeah, it was really good. First level is crisps, bro.
Oh, good. At level 1. That was a good level 1. And our first statement is, accountability is only for leaders. I mean, I would disagree. But
Well,
what's your
I think
view?
depends on what your definition of leaders, what's a leader, and what your definition of accountability is. I think John Maxwell says this, that leadership is influence. That means whether you're officially appointed or not appointed as a leader, if you have influence over anybody or anything, you're definitely a leader. And so that's really important to view each one here. God's given the potential to every person to have influence. Hence, we're all leaders. So accountability is definitely for every person, and not just for those who are appointed leaders. But again, what is accountability? That's another big thing to answer. Accountability, I think, just means responsibility. You take responsibility for whatever facet of your life, right? You take account of it, you take a hold of it, and say, all right, I want to be responsible for this area of my life, or this area, whether it's character, whether it's work, your ethics, your morals, all of that. And being accountable just means that I want to be responsible for everything that I represent, wherever, whether it's online, whether it's in person, whether it's on my own.
Yeah.
And so I'd say that accountability definitely is, so when you look at leadership and everybody gets to be a leader, everybody qualifies, look at accountability as something that's responsible, then you see in Proverbs, it says that iron sharpens iron. So if there are, accountability works in a way to really help the person who's being accountable and the person who's being accountable to, right? Both people to really, really grow. When you hang around with people who are better than you, automatically the conversations that you're in, the atmosphere that you're in, automatically pulls you up to that level. So I'd say 100% accountability is a big win. It is for leaders. It is for everyone. Right? Another place, I think, even in Romans, it says that each one will be accountable before God.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you look at each one of us like iron sharpening iron, then it becomes really easy to be accountable to God. And other than us always looking at, the fact that I'm like, nobody can tell me anything, I'm directly accountable to God. No, but we're accountable to each other and we're accountable to God. But I can also look at this and say, I want to be accountable to anybody that's godly. So that'll give you an idea also who you can be accountable to is somebody who has some kind of like godly stance in them.
Yeah.
Somebody who's kind of gone before you, who's a little more seasoned in finance, in character, in so many areas of life. But we must look at ourselves as leaders because we have the ability to have influence. Right? If we have that low self-esteem about us, that, hey, I can never be a leader or something like that, then accountability is probably not for you because it'll probably bring you down.
Yeah. Do you think the fear of being responsible is one of the main factors why people maybe distinguish the responsibility of being accountable between leaders and for everyday people? Because like if you consider you being a part of a team, now if I'm a part of a team or even if I'm leading the team, I'm accountable either way. If I'm a leader, I'm still accountable to the people in my team. Whereas if I'm just a member, I'm accountable to my leader. Do you think that lack of either wanting to take responsibility or having that fear of taking responsibility plays a huge role in that?
100%. I think that's absolutely right. When I was young, I actually felt the exact same thing. There was a year, I think I was 19, I was asked to be a leader on a particular team in college that I was supposed to lead all year round. And I just did not want to take leadership in there because to me it was like, now I have to sit and think about what everybody else has to do in the team. I got to think of new opportunities. I got to think of new things we have to do through the year so that at the end of the year we have a list of things that we've done.
Yeah.
So many areas of being responsible. Whereas even if I was like the top most dependable person in the team and not the leader, I still get to be told what to do. So I'll just do whatever you tell me. And I felt really comfortable being in a second position, where you tell me whatever, I'll do everything, but don't make me think of things to do.
Yeah.
It's almost like we love to be visionless and we love to be, because you can take the seat behind anything goes wrong, you don't get the blame. But I think 100% a lack of responsibility is what really gets us to not want to be leaders. And the Bible is absolutely contrary to that. Old Testament, it says you shall be the head and not the tail.
Yeah.
It's very specific in the space that God is calling us to be one that thinks, has vision, is able to see where you need to go, make goals in life. And so 100%, many of us just don't want to be responsible, so we don't look at ourselves as leaders.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, we move on to our next level. Let's go ahead and take the next level.
Whoa.
Spicy pakoda. And our topic for discussion is accountability involves only correction.
Accountability involves only correction. Sure. Do we take the bite first or afterwards?
It has to affect you
This
first.
looks absolutely Oh, it's got some chilies. Mashy. Oh,
It's like digging into one more pile of mashed potato. Oh, sorry.
wow.
You can already feel it, huh?
Stray audience member. Wow, man.
Oh, you're already
Guys.
sweating, huh?
Like, just chill, yeah. On the murderous spice. Whew. All right.
Accountability involves only correction.
Wow. Accountability is a tough subject to look into if you don't have a lot of, I won't say information, but a lot of experience. As a church, as young people, yeah, dude, it's like, it's creeping up.
Only the second pakoda. Oh, God.
Man. Accountability, when we started to look at this thing called accountability a few years ago, we were like really still in our early 20s. And, we got a lot of it wrong because we always thought about, this whole thing of correction and making sure you're doing the right thing. Whereas the Bible's really contrary to it because the Bible calls us to be holy and not to be right.
Yeah.
So it's not really about being corrected, but I look at this accountability is about championing. If you look at what championing is, there's a few really, really important things about anything that you champion in your life. It comes from a place of love. So you have to be passionate or really love something to champion it, like a skill, sports or anything that you do, whatever skill you have, whether it's music or anything. In order to champion that in your life, it requires a real passion for it because passion will be the root for all the direction, correction, all of that to be taken well.
Yeah.
So if you take out the passion for it and you take out the love for it, everything seems negative. The correction will always be like, why am I always being corrected? Why am I? But if the principle of championing is there from both sides, the person who's being accountable as well as the person who you're being accountable to, if in both their lives their concern is championing, then everything that you do has the context of love in it. It's really, really beautiful. And you see this in the life of Peter as well. See, Peter, when he denies Jesus the first time, when Jesus said, you'll deny me. And then he denies Jesus. But then towards the end of John, you see Jesus comes back to him. And what does he ask Peter first? This is the first time he's meeting him after the denial. He says, Peter, do you love me? Right? Do you love me? If you love me, feed my sheep.
Yeah.
And I think that whole thing of championing one another is the main cause of the gospel. Like, we love each other, we love people, God loves us, and he wants to see us championed and really run to the end to finish the call on our lives. So I think it's not so much correction. We tend to have this very negative connotation about accountability, that it's about accountability is all about championing. Championing has a ton of correction in it. It has encouragement, it has direction, it has many, many aspects of life. But if we miss the context, everything will seem negative.
Yeah.
Right? Because everything is pushing you into a place that you're probably uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually. It gives a really nice perspective to allowing accountability to work as a team rather than it just being something that
Absolutely.
you're receiving all the time. But how would you put it across from the person who they are being accountable to? So from a leader's perspective, the championing thing makes a lot of sense. But
Yeah.
how would you put it in like a little more subtle way, not giving it a word of correction, but how would you put it across from a way that a leader can move across?
Yeah, that's great. I think that's a really good questioning. Question. I think the end goal is again reminding the person who's being championed what the goal is. And you see again, if you look at the relationship between Paul and Timothy,
Yeah.
right? Same thing. He reminds him of what the goal is. He reminds him of what his future is, and hence, hey, this is why we're talking about this, right? Don't think that you're too young, but finish the race well. Run, be faithful. It's the same thing. Remember the future. And one of the most amazing thing I've learned in the almost like 15 years of being discipled myself and discipling others is I've seen that it's been incredible just constantly reminding people of who they are. Reminding people of what lies ahead of them really encourages them to be faithful.
Yeah. Actually, even with some of our zero gravity leaders, we have this study on a weekly basis. And we yesterday went through the topic of 1 Timothy chapter 4, where Paul is telling Timothy that don't neglect your gifts. Speak up in front of the Sanhedrin and all the other leaders as young as you are. So just having that, like, if I was in Timothy's place, I'd probably think, oh my God, why is he pushing me to do this when they are going to sit on my head no matter what? So yeah, the championing thing actually is a really good perspective to look at it from.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to level 3. And our topic is discipleship makes people dependent.
Well.
Let's go. The second one hit hard actually.
Second one was mushy and then it just killed you internally. This just smells weird. So I'll put some spray on it afterwards.
Okay, yeah,
Anyway.
this is bad.
This is okay. No, it's not.
Yeah. Are we supposed to have the whole thing? We are.
Well, can I get the ice? Well, here's when you look at discipleship, you're always looking at the sense of there being some sort of a generation to generation conversation in this. You don't disciple somebody that's kind of an equal in their call or an equal in their in maturity. You understand what I'm saying? You always offer discipleship to somebody that you're raising.
Yeah.
One of the greatest joy of a parent is to see their children make good decisions in life. Like the goal is that when the child grows up, that they'll be able to stand on their feet and make good decisions. Then as a parent that they become a citizen of the nation, right? It's the same goal for discipleship.
Yeah.
It is, and it's really important for us to understand that similarly, discipleship does not teach methods, it teaches mindset.
Wow.
And so as a parent, you never want to teach methods to your children, you want to teach mindsets. You want to teach them how to think. And so discipleship is basically teaching people to be independent. So the very fact that discipleship can make somebody dependent in the sense, and how, for example, somebody always coming, if you're discipling somebody, they always come to you and ask you what their boundary should be or what decision they should make. That proves that your discipleship is not really effective, it's method based. Whereas Jesus taught, everything he taught was mind based, to think, to love. When Jesus had compassion, he did stuff, right? And so we want accountability and discipleship to be things that lead people to good thought and to better mindsets, all right, so that they're able to make good decisions and maneuver through life. If we teach methods, then it's going to make them dependent, right? Because then every new life situation, like life's made up of everything we've never seen, right? And never been through, never felt, never experienced. And if we're going to teach methods of do this and don't do that, do's and don'ts, what's going to happen is when somebody comes across something they've never done before, they're going to be like, oh, I don't know, I need to check with the person, who I was accountable to or discipling me, saying, hey, I just came across this new thing, I don't know what to do. But if you taught them the principle of it and the mindset behind it, then they would know how to apply the principle and the mindset to the situation and be like, all right, this is something Jesus wouldn't do. Right? And so the whole crux of discipleship is to teach us how to be independent. That's really, really important. And we see it in Romans 12, right? He says, he's telling them to renew their minds. But what's the goal of that? The goal is that when you renew your minds, what will happen is that in the end, you will know what true worship is.
Yeah.
And he says, you will know God's perfect, good, perfect, and pleasing will for our life. And that's like the biggest issue and biggest question that most people have is, I don't know the will of God for my life.
Yeah.
It's probably because we were taught methods and we were not taught the mindset of the kingdom. Yeah.
But if you even consider, like, you gave an example of a parent-child relationship. Now, in the early stages of life, the child is dependent on their parent for maybe to get a hang of certain situations in life and all. So even if you consider this entire accountability, discipleship relationship, for a matter of time, it is a parent-child relationship. So how do you identify when you just let the bird fly on its own?
Yeah, I think there's definitely seasons to this. And you only become a parent as you parent more. You only learn how to disciple well when you disciple more. So the whole goal of it is, like, you can be prepared for exams, you can be prepared for a job. You can never be prepared to have a child. You can never be prepared to disciple.
That's true.
Like, you can disciple one person and it'll be a breeze, and you disciple a second person and it'll be the most difficult thing on earth. Yeah. It's really hard. And the more that you be faithful, what discipling always doesn't work one way only. It works two ways. Because as what I've seen in my life is, the more that I've discipled over the years, the more God has changed my life through people. He's taught me to be more compassionate, to be more loving, to make sure that I'm definitely looking into the heart of the people to see what God's, call is on their life, right? And so that takes a lot of care and concern. But at the same time, there's seasons, and as you do it more, you learn to recognize those seasons. You learn to recognize when, there's definitely a time in the beginning where they're really dependent, where you need to spell it out and say, hey, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Clear boundaries. Yeah. But after some time, they learn how to make the boundaries themselves, and because of the thought process, right? And so, and then when they can think well, that they're good enough to begin to take steps towards discipling people themselves.
Wow. Yeah. That was a really good perspective. Okay, let's move on to level 4. Level 4.
This is a lot of green. Oh, there's a little red.
Oh.
Definitely hot sauce.
Level 4. that went up my nose, man. Like, my hands are red.
Yeah, man. Guys, it's spicy.
Level 4 is discipleship is about having all the answers.
What is discipleship about?
Discipleship is about having all the answers. Oh, okay. I'm not finishing it, huh? This is spicy. This is damn spicy.
All right. I think discipleship is about the mystery of discovering God. Like, I love that Jesus never gave all of the answers for everything. You know, it's amazing that he taught us how to pray, and he said, let your kingdom come, let your will be done.
I'm sorry.
Jesus taught us how It's too spicy. All right. So Jesus taught us how to pray. He taught us, let your kingdom come, let your will be done. John the Baptist often said, the kingdom is at hand. So there's this thing of, the kingdom is here, but it's yet to come. So there's a sense of, there's a certain amount of revelation today, but yet there's plenty of revelation to come. We're saved now, right? But soon, but the Bible says, when we see him, we'll be like him. So we're in the process of being made perfect. And this is really important as we disciple, that we realize we don't need to know all the answers. It's the discovery of the answer that's the journey of life. And you know, we've, as the church has just over the last few years taken such a strong stand, and I think there's so much pride in that I don't think God likes a lot, that a lot of believers and Christians think that they have the right answer all the time, so they take the moral higher ground all the time. You know, and I think it's not so much the answer, but the journey to the answer. Jesus could have saved everybody and didn't need to come down to earth for that. It wasn't needed. He could have done something in heaven, but he came down, he did relationship with us, he taught us what it is to love God and love each other, and then he went. So there's this process of getting the answer, of unfolding the answer. And so you see it also. So there definitely in discipleship, there's a level of trust. You see Abraham and Isaac, right? You see the angel tells Abraham, go there, right? And sacrifice your only son, your promised son. Basically sacrifice everything that your life's been about right now. But Abraham does it, and he says this amazing thing. He says, you know, we will go and worship, and he says, we will return. That means he knew the instruction was to sacrifice his son, but he knew that he could trust God, right? That God would provide an answer up at the time of the sacrifice. And God did that, and he returned with Isaac. And so I think discipleship's all about that journey to the answer. Some of us, our lives are in such a space we don't even know if we can ever be discipled. But let's find out step by step, because God will shock you by the way he can transform every life and use even the least of us for some of the most powerful things that we could never imagine. That's the beauty of God's love for us.
Referring back to the previous question, you said discipleship is not about having all the answers, it's about figuring it out. But being the person that's discipling somebody else, if someone is seeking for answers or seeking to draw near to God, then how do you use that statement to maybe make it okay to figure out answers through the journey? Because like, if it comes to addiction, if someone is asking me a question of, you know, how do I do this? How do I deal with this now? But I've never really been through it, and I'm seeking for God to give me that answer too, but I've not really reached that stage yet. So how do you justify a statement that discipleship is not all about having the answers, being someone who maybe at that point should be having some answers?
I think, see, the Bible has definitive answers for sure, right? There are Jesus talks about, Sermon on the Mount, he gives definite answers. Paul talks about definite answers. There are definite yes and no's, all right? And I think those are there, but then there are many other life situations that need to be figured out. It has to be unfolded, right? Like the context of your life matters in that a lot. Paul says, he says everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. So let's look at it in terms of some answers that are definite and some answers that require a discovery. And those will usually be answers that need to be applied to our lives. Like, how do we maneuver through this? Those are important things. Everything for the clearer things, we know the yes and no's, right? You know when when there's traffic on the road, you just don't go jump in front of a bus, right? That's definite. And the Bible's clear about situations. But there are some situations that require, a longer time period of an answer. They require deeper things. Like Jesus said, there are some spirits that go only with prayer and fasting. So there's ways that you work around it. I think discipleship is a mix of these two.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that perspective. Okay, now we are at level 5.
Ooh.
And we are at our last 3 levels. So for these levels, we're going to make it a little bit more difficult. We're going to add a little bit of a twist. I just put like a cube of ice in my mouth. Directly. Okay, so for the last 3 levels, we are going to add a little bit of more difficulty. Every question, we have to add 1 more layer of clothing. Not that we're already dying, thank God for this AC. But we're going to add 1 more layer of clothing every question we move on to. Okay? So now for our 5th question, our statement is, accountability and discipleship are the major reasons for gossip in the church.
Whoa.
So, take your pakoda and put on a layer of clothing.
Pakoda time. Did we put the... Okay. Let's see what we got.
I can see like 5 chilies in this one.
All right. This is your shirt, so I won't wear it.
Take the blanket. It wasn't that spicy.
Should I wear this like a shawl?
It has to cover you fully.
Like this? All right. Cool.
It's looking like a cape.
Well.
It's not that bad. This is better than the previous one.
All of these spicy sauces are just smelly, that's all. I think if accountability and discipleship are not looked at in its holistic form with the purest goal in mind, it will absolutely become a ground for gossip. Because what's the principle of discipleship? The principle of discipleship is, Jesus said, come follow me. And you walk in a close, trusted relationship with somebody that your following of them would lead you to the place that God wants you to be at. And that often would include a lot of trust and a lot of transparency, a lot of times of, honest conversation, which means bearing your heart and being vulnerable about things in your life. And if that's not dealt with, like with respect and honor, that can become an absolute space for gossip. And that's happened. It's happened with us as well. We've dealt with it several times in church where, somebody has a heart to disciple somebody, but then, listening to different stories of different people, it can be overwhelming sometimes, to where it becomes a topic of conversation. And so trust is like a huge part of this. I think the question really is, when you talk about gossip, who are you leading the person you're discipling to? If you lead them to yourself, all right, which sometimes tends to happen, you will tend to lead them towards personal agenda. But we're here to lead people to Jesus.
Yeah.
So that's the point of discipleship, the point of our trust and our relationship is that I'm able to release to you the things that God has put in my heart, right? And they're for you. And you're able to receive the things that God has put in your heart from the person that you're accountable to.
Yeah.
And so when the intention is clear and the heart is good for it, it becomes a perfect space for you to grow. All right. But if it's not, then it becomes a perfect ground for gossip and, conversation and unwanted chatter. Prayer time becomes like, this is what's happening with that person. It's so sad they're making poor decisions.
Yeah.
And all of this. So, yeah.
Yeah. I have no questions for this one.
This is so spicy.
I just want to get done with it.
Guys, actually it's been okay. It's not too bad. I can deal with it.
It's hitting the side of my tongue.
Yeah.
Now we're at our sixth question. That's level 6. So our level 6 controversial statement is accountability isn't a necessity. If so, why wasn't Jesus accountable to anyone? So we move on.
All right.
Pick up your
Whoa.
clothing.
Caps. It's got like woolen stuff inside.
This is
Oh my
bracing the
gosh.
winter. And have your level 6 pakoda.
This is something you never experienced in Mumbai.
Yeah. I think now it's
Oh
just
my
because-
gosh. Such really tasty.
I'm scared. I'm scared.
What's this rubbish cap, man? Makes it so much harder. Alright. Shocks.
That's nice sauce.
It's tasty, but it's like, man, your stomach transplant tomorrow. Whew.
You have to finish the whole thing.
I finished.
No, I can see from your bowl.
This is just, my grandmom always taught me you have to leave a little extra.
For who?
For who did something like that. For the fairies. Let's go. Some more tissues. It's like,
Yeah, now today.
let's go, guys. All right. Accountability and Jesus wasn't accountable. Well, that's not true. He was actually accountable at every point of his life. If you see Luke 2 chapter, I'm saying. Luke chapter 2. And Jesus grew in wisdom and favor with God and man. But the verse before that, let me read it out. It says, then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. That means Jesus subjected himself to be obedient to his parents, and then he grew with that in the sense of obedience and wisdom and all of these things. So he was absolutely accountable in his life to his parents. He was, and we don't hear much about his early life, but then you see he was even submitted to John the Baptist. You know, he was submitted to his Father in heaven. He said, I don't do anything outside of my own will. In John chapter 5, he says, I seek not my own will, but the will of him who sent me. So I think Jesus lays out his life very, very clearly as a life that was accountable. You know, in his toughest moment, he says to God the Father, he says, you know, I can't do this, take this cup from me, but let your will be done. Right? So there's this sense of strong accountability that Jesus loves. Never did anything outside of the realm of his accountability. And I think that's a huge place for us to learn. And I do believe accountability, discipleship is an absolute necessity for the Christian walk.
Yeah. The point that you brought about John the Baptist also is such a... I think that's the best reminder you can have of Jesus being accountable as well. Just him being God and him in his full form also, with God showing favor on him at the moment he was getting baptized.
It's serious.
It's really bad. Yeah. Do you think accountability is something that, I mean, it's encouraged in the church, but do you think it's something that should be taught as well? Since your first point, you said accountability is not just for leaders.
Yeah.
And just we have people that keep coming to the church, they become a part. And even for those who just come, even for like visiting the church as well, or just being a part of the community, do you think accountability can be something that's taught?
I think accountability is one of those things that is best learned when it has an example. And I think the starting place for accountability shouldn't be the church, it should be the home. And it's really, really important because you learn accountability from the way your parents are submitted to each other. Bible talks about that as well. You know, we always look at, hey, there's only submission for the wife. There's a clear submission for the man, husband as well. And we learn these submission roles, the beauty of each role as a sibling, as an elder sibling, a younger sibling. Accountability is learned in these roles, and in church is magnified. The challenges in the homes where accountability is not practiced. And so the dream is to have accountability begin in the house. But yes, church, we want to see it more and more evidently, and we want to see the example of accountability on different levels. One of the things that I'm most proud of here at COH is that we love accountability. We've learned to love it. It was not something that came naturally. We had to discover it and see and as we began to see the fruit of it, and we're seeing so much of it today, we actually saw generations. We've seen generations of leaders, disciples come up. I think over 4 generations now of leaders that have come, of disciples. And it's so amazing to see that as each one chooses to be discipled, as they choose to be accountable, in their own experience and their own life, they're seeing God do things that they never dreamt of. And that's not a working of man, that's the working of God. And so definitely the accountability is absolutely necessary within the church or for every believer.
We're on our last question and our last level. That's level 7. How are you doing so far, Sonnah?
Man, my insides are on fire.
Yeah, I can feel it too. We usually end all our segments when it comes to the people who've come and shared with like a practical application segment. So when it comes to accountability or discipleship, either being accountable or being the person to whom someone's being accountable to, what are some practical transformative points you can give someone to use for their life? I'd put some Outcast merch. Plug Outcast.
Woo!
Yeah.
This is soggy and soaking. Thanks, guys. Beauty. Done. My spice for the year's done. I mean, the only thing I can say is really what I've learned from my own experience. And from my own experience was when I started off my journey with God, it was very simple, incredibly simple. Because I asked very honest questions to God in my prayer time as I read my Bible. I asked myself really honest, like simple questions. And when I started, I remember asking myself the first time in about 2010-11, God, I want you to use me. I just want to be a blessing to people. And I remember the Holy Spirit asking me practical things in my life. Like, how can you ask me, how can I use you when you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that you don't even choose to work on? And so it started with the littlest things of watching how I speak, like that. My speech was encouraging towards people, like simple things like that. And I started to take step by step, changes in my life. And as I became particular, at one point, I remember not speaking to people for, a couple of weeks because, God was just teaching me how to be kind in my speech. And as I began to make little changes in my life, I realized that automatically people, again, that whole thing of influence, right? So people would automatically come to me and say, hey, can I spend a little time with you? I have a few questions. And as I began to grow in that, I started to get discipled myself, disciple those around me. And there was overall growth to where I never joined the ministry to come in and say, hey, I want to be a pastor, so that's why I'm here. The goal was, God, I want to be a blessing to people and I want to be a source of God, really seeing people's lives change. But I realized that step by step, as I took little steps, asked God to challenge little areas of my own life. And this is really hard. Little areas of my life would change and it would impact people outside. And today I have this awesome privilege of leading in the capacity that I lead in, or do things or saying things that sometimes even carry weight because God's been good through the changes that I've chosen to make in my life. And I think as we all do that, It's not about the, we often look at somebody who's been a great leader today and be like, oh, I want to be famous like this, or I want to have this much influence. But we forget the little steps that we need to take every day that will take, it took me like a decade to have, to have my first, like a decade of following God, to actually hear God and say, God, confidently, this is what God's calling me to do. So I say, take it step by step, be faithful step by step, be accountable, start to get discipled, and all of that will you'll see the fruit in your life, but it will take time. Everything in the kingdom takes time. It's all about the long race. Nothing comes quick. This is painful.
It's painful.
What's the next challenge, bro?
Done.
Done.
We're done with our Pakoda challenge. Sonnah actually did it. I'm proud of Sonnah.
Greatest achievement of my life. That to do it looking like a total freak.
Thank you everybody for watching our third podcast. I'm so happy that you could join us and watch us suffer. I think this was still nothing compared to the guy that does it on Hot Ones. But we still...
I know the last one was 500
Yeah,
million
that was really bad. It's like all up in my nose and everything.
My
If
tissues
you're
are burning.
proud of Sonnah for completing this challenge, please comment down below and say, Sonnah, we're really proud of you.
Give hearts.
And stay tuned.
And
We're
likes.
going to be coming up with more fun videos for our Zero Gravity podcast. Maybe we'll do something even worse next time with somebody else. Yeah, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and even turn on the notification bell so you know every time we post something new.
Eat spicy pakodas.
Yeah, eat spicy pakodas while you're watching this video with us.
All right.
Anyways, see you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye.
Peace.